Blimpie is probably a brand you haven't recalled in quite some time, but this chain once ranked among America's biggest submarine sandwich franchises. They became famous for their signature menu item, the Blimpie Base, which drew millions of orders annually. During their peak, these restaurants were everywhere in more than 2,000 spots nationwide. Looking at historical data from credible sources, I've assembled a timeline chart showing their location count by year. The pattern is striking. Blimpie has endured more than 2 decades of serious struggles. I'd suggest their troubles actually extend back even further. In fact, I'd argue this company never truly experienced a period of genuine stability or consistent promise throughout its entire existence. Their journey has been turbulent, marked by several critical errors. This video explores their story while identifying what I believe are the key factors behind their downfall. The beginning. 3 New Jersey high school friends reconnected at a social gathering years after graduation and decided to launch a venture together. They chose sandwiches because they discovered a thriving shop about an hour away and believed they could replicate that success locally. After several months of planning and securing a $2,000 loan from an acquaintance, they purchased second-hand equipment and launched on April 4th, 1964. Actually, I may have overstated things earlier about the company. Never seeming promising, their opening day was phenomenal. Customers queued outside before they unlocked the doors, and business stayed brisk until close. They earned $265 on day 1, which was remarkable given their sandwiches sold for under 50 cents each. Their immediate success stemmed from timing. Submarine sandwiches hadn't yet gained widespread popularity in that region. No national chains existed, and I'd wager most customers were experiencing their first sub that very day. They'd essentially discovered America's next major food trend. Quick favor, if you found this video interesting, subscribing helps us cover more rise and fall stories like this. Kinda do please. Reckless expansion. Naturally, they wanted to capitalize quickly. This leads to my first explanation for their decline: excessive haste. Almost immediately, they created problematic supplier relationships and accumulated debt by neglecting payments. Instead, they redirected all earnings toward launching additional locations. Within just 3 months, they'd opened 2 more stores, their reasoning being that with 3 partners, each could manage 1 location. Then franchising began, and things spiraled. They fell so far behind on obligations that they were forced to divest all company-owned restaurants, transforming into a 100% franchise operation. Their revenue shifted from direct food sales to franchise fees and royalty percentages from franchisee sales. Throughout the 1970s and into the 1980s, Blimpie pursued franchising with extreme aggression, arguably too aggressively. They'd sign agreements with virtually anyone and provide minimal oversight. This created countless problems. Geographically, locations were scattered randomly, complicating distribution and marketing. The biggest issue was inconsistency. Many operators ignored uniform requirements, substituted unauthorized ingredients, or sold completely different foods. Cleanliness standards and health regulations were frequently disregarded. Customers never knew what to expect entering a Blimpie location, and the brand quickly developed a poor reputation. The Border Cafe distraction. The next factor is the Border Cafe, likely unfamiliar to most people since it was a brief upscale Mexican restaurant in 1980s Manhattan. By this time, Tony Conzo was the sole remaining founder, and his commitment seemed questionable. He redirected his attention toward this unrelated venture. As he described it, "We started learning a lot about tequila and forgetting about bologna." He launched 2 additional Border Cafe locations and even renamed the parent company Astor Restaurant Group. While initially moderately successful, Border Cafe quickly declined. Tony Conza himself acknowledges the entire endeavor was a massive error. You might wonder how neglecting Blimpie for merely a few years could be so damaging. I have an explanation, but first I need to provide more context with my third reason. Competition. Consider that Blimpie was among the pioneers' most popular subchains we know today, launched after 1964, including Subway, which started just 1 year later. Blimpie had a first-mover advantage in an emerging market and did capitalize on it, albeit recklessly. By the early 1980s, Blimpie and Subway were roughly equivalent. Subway had approximately 200 locations, with Blimpie slightly behind. But then, Precisely when the market exploded and competition intensified, Tony Kanza shifted focus elsewhere, allowing Subway to surge ahead. By decade's end, Blimpie remained around 200 locations, perhaps slightly more, while Subway had expanded to over 4,000. Blimpie had fallen so far behind that catching up seemed nearly impossible, especially while still battling their negative reputation, inconsistent quality, and increasingly alienated franchisees. To his credit, Tony Kanza eventually re-engaged fully. He considered quitting, but forced himself to rediscover his passion. He improved relationships by visiting franchises, implemented quality control programs that improved cleanliness and consistency, and honestly addressed many issues. Though somewhat late, he positioned Blimpie to capitalize on opportunities heading into the 1990s. Non-traditional locations. During the 1990s, convenience stores faced declining cigarette revenue, traditionally a major profit source. To compensate, embedding sandwich shops inside convenience stores became popular. It was almost ideal since sandwich operations are simple, requiring minimal equipment and space compared to other fast food concepts. They expanded into not just convenience stores, but hospitals, colleges, bowling alleys. They even created tiny carts and kiosks for venues like baseball stadiums. This largely explains how they grew from 200 to 2,000 locations in just over a decade. Blimpie essentially squeezed into any available space. You could argue this benefited them temporarily, which is why listing as negative is debatable. However, it's problematic for several reasons. First, visibility suffered. Many locations weren't visible from streets, so people only thought of Blimpie when already in a hospital or at a ball game. Second, this was a specific opportunity that quickly saturated. Remember, as a franchise company, substantial revenue comes from new franchise fees. When new openings slowed toward decade's end, revenue and profits dropped. The company was sold to a private investment group led by a California franchisee operating 44 locations. That's when things truly deteriorated. Intensifying competition. By the 2000s, Subway had only extended their lead, while Quiznos was also surpassing them, despite their own instability. Market share was being captured by others. Everyone else seemed ascendant while Blimpie declined. Lack of differentiation. From the beginning, that original Blimpie essentially copied another sub shop which, incidentally, evolved into Jersey Mike's, now a national chain. Also notable, Blimpie uses similar colors to Subway, with comparable overall design and layout. Many of their commercials directly compared them to Subway, making them seem more like a Subway alternative than a distinct brand. This is a Subway sub. This is a Blimpie Best. Ooh, bigger. You may disagree, but I find other chains have stronger identities. Subway had Eat Fresh, Jared, and the $5 footlong. Quiznos had Toasty, and those memorable, if bizarre, Sponge Monkeys. Jimmy John's has freaky fast delivery. What's Blimpie's equivalent? Perhaps simply Blimpie, their 1990s slogan, though not quite as powerful. By 2005, they recognized this problem. Their chief marketing officer stated, "We're trying to separate ourselves from Subway, and we can't win by playing by the same rules." Their solution was positioning as a higher-end option, upgrading restaurants and logos, offering pricier panini-style sandwiches. This might have been promising, at least it provided differentiation, but execution faltered. They promoted it with a multi-million-dollar campaign featuring a giant talking sandwich named Blimpie Guy, supposedly inspired by Jack in the Box's mascot. Again, not particularly original, and unclear how this mascot conveyed upscale positioning. Plus, 2005 heading into the recession was poor timing for premium pricing. Meanwhile, Subway dominated during the recession with their $5 footlong. Everything continued unraveling. Throughout their history, Blimpie has successfully attracted customers when direct alternatives were absent, like early on when they were the only sandwich shop around, or when someone happened upon a convenience store or hospital location. But when positioned near competing major chains, they haven't effectively differentiated themselves or drawn customers. I'd love to hear in the comments. Have you been to Blimpie? What did you think? Are you disappointed they've been gradually closing, or indifferent? Do you agree with my analysis, or would you add or remove factors? What's their future? Can they mount a comeback? What would it take? Share any other thoughts about Blimpie below.